joint meeting today. My name is Christy John with Atkins Reales. I am Vice President for Georgia ITE this year. And welcome to the session. And we are very excited to be able to hold this meeting, like joint meeting with GPA on a Safe Streets and Road for All panel discussion. So for today, we will start with some remarks and announcements from Georgia ITE side and GPA side. And we'll move to the panel discussion. So I'm very excited about this panel. And thank you, GPA, Christine, and Erin, to work with me to organize such a great event. And this is great venue as well. So welcome and enjoy your lunch. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to our affiliates leader, Georgia ITE's President Sam Harris Ajita.
Thank you. All right. Wow, it's great to see all of you today. Thank y'all for making it out. Thanks to the city. This is an amazing place to hold a meeting. We have to make this a reoccurring for every year. So I'm going to talk, just in case you haven't heard it, just give you a quick update on the STEAM camp that was conducted back in July. And just give a quick update to that, and then I have something else I want to share with you guys. But we had the STEAM camp, outstanding amount of volunteers from Georgia ITE. We had 22 in total, and then we had these sessions. It was a 2-day workshop. Again, if you're not familiar with it, that we brought in ages from kindergarten all the way up to what we had it as 12th grade, but we only got up to 10th graders. And so the first day we had our littles, and then the second day we brought in our kind of 6th grade on up to the 10th grade. But we had close to 80 kids sign up. So we were only anticipating like 30 kids was around our goal. So we had 80 kids sign up. And so that was great. Another big goal of ours from my initiative that I announced it back in December is we wanted to get a lot of girls involved with the camp. So we actually had around 30% of the participants in the camp were girls. And so you can see a good amount of those right there with my daughter right there in the middle. Very, very excited and happy about the camp. In addition to our 2 sponsorships, which was MP5 and Thomas and Hutton, we were able to leverage that sponsorship money, and we actually gave out $2,600 in scholarships for kids that would not have been able to go to the camp. And I tell you, because we had an application where you had to fill it out and actually ask for the scholarship money, there definitely was families that it mattered a lot to them. So that's big for us in order to give that. Here's some pictures of the camp. So we had activities slated for the entire day. So the Art It Out team that we actually brought in, they led the camps with certified therapists, not providing therapy, but they are very much accustomed to actually doing these type of camps. So they were able to lead these activities. So we went from building cars to putting roadways on map. We actually even busted out MUTCDs and then went through signs. I mean, there was tons of activities that we had for the kids. We had Hero come out and allow them to walk around the vehicle, get in the vehicle, see the lights. We had GSP come out, and they even brought out one of their fancy Mustangs. So that was really cool. But we were able to ask GSP questions about safety and what they do on the roadway and why first responders are so important. And we even had a bridge building component to it as well. So overall, I would say from everyone I spoke to, from me being there and observing everything, this was a success for us. And to the point where Southern District is very much interested in this. They've already reached out. We've already presented to them. And even the STEM International Committee has reached out to us and seen the presentation. And they actually want to do a webinar for national for us to showcase this and be able to build a toolkit where we can actually replicate this in the other sections for ITE, which would be big for us as well, because that means not only kids in Georgia are getting this type of involvement, but it would be kids in hopefully every other state that would get this type of involvement. So that's our goals moving forward on it. And we just had the board meeting this past Monday. There was overwhelming support that we will have this again next year. So get ready for that. All right. So next up, I have a question for the group. I like to be interactive. So who likes the Atlanta Braves? Let's get a raise of hand. All right, perfect. So we do have an event coming up with the Activities Committee. It will be a joint event with the ITS group, and that we will be, I think it's September 24th. So keep a lookout for those information so you can register for that event. But that is not ultimately why I asked you this question. I asked you this question ultimately because of a new initiative that we are doing here at GDOT. So this is a new app that just came out. So you can download this. You can use that QR code. If not, you can search it later. But you can download this app and be able to register as a user, and it will start looking at your driving behavior. So, but with the caveat that the incentive in all this is, if since all of you raised your hand and who did raise your hand and say you love the Braves, we've actually partnered with the Braves on this app. And this app, like I said, you ultimately will have a driving score. And this is really well timed for this presentation because of the safety aspect to it. But we will come up with scores. The users that have the highest scores will get prizes from the Braves. So we're talking about spring training ticket package. We're talking about in-season game tickets. We're talking about bobbleheads, etc. So it's a wide range of prizes in it. But ultimately, the department's perspective on this is we want to be able to get people to understand what they can do better in driving behavior, which is not typical for us, right? We're infrastructure, but this is us branching out and looking at these different areas. So please consider downloading the app. I have it. It tracks your trips, it rates your trips, it tells you exactly where, because the things it's looking for is phone use, and no one should be using their phone while they're driving, right? Unless it's hands-free. It looks at your cornering, your speeding, harsh braking, and I already said cornering, but there might be one more. And it uses all that to be able to tell you how you're driving. So, yes, Tom, we have a question. All right. If you have access to their account. Oh, actually, no. There's a leaderboard in the app. And so if you're not really good at creating, like, because they'll ask you for your first name, last name, and then that your first initial and your last name is what's put up on the leaderboard. So if you download this, you can see S. Harris. I'm there. I'm not so great at cornering. I go ahead and let y'all guys know about that before. Uh, I do have a score of a 91, so I'm happy about that. But you could see them on that leaderboard, and you can see it actually broken out into different categories for the different people. So, all right. And then next up is summer seminar recap. Christy, did you want me to keep going with it? Okay, I will keep going. So successful summer seminar. I know Alex was here. I don't know if Jared was here, but let's give a round of applause for Alex and all the team that did. Here he is right over here. Outstanding work that this team did, being able to chair this conference. The technical aspect of it was great. Of course, we always have a great time down in St. Simons, and I would say that it was another outstanding success for Summer Seminar this year, and we look forward to next year. So you want me to go with this? I won an award. There we go. I wasn't able to make to Philly, and just in case anyone wants an update on that, I was supposed to go to Philly, didn't make it. People at Summer Seminar, I know you're really anticipating what I have to say next, because I essentially one of my bags never came back. It went to Philadelphia twice, so we actually did get it back. So rising success in that regard. And so save the date for upcoming meetings. So Thursday, September 19th, we have a joint meeting at the KSU student chapter. That's going to be a topic related to connected vehicles, always an entertaining topic, plus a poster session. That's really cool. And then we also have October 17th, our Young Member Spotlight. November 21st is our Traffic Bowl, which will be at Georgia Tech. And then 19th will be the annual meeting at Maggiano's. And I know who the speaker is. I don't know if it's public yet, but it is an outstanding speaker, and y'all are going to be very excited about that. Committee updates. So safety committee, they have a meeting coming up on August 23rd. Topic is safer speeds. Contact Sarah or Kelly. The new planning committee that we have established, it kicks off on September 5th at 9:30. So if you're interested in that, which given that our audience today, yes, please do join the planning committee. It's newly formed. This is really exciting for us to have. And then micro simulation committee, they have the 2024 simulation day coming up soon. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, can everybody hear me? Sorry, use the microphone. Use the microphone. Great. Hey, everybody. Sorry. I just want to give a little more information on the safety committee. This is from Kelly. As you can see, it is going to be the 23rd of August, but I just want to put a little more emphasis on the virtual and in-person option. So there's going to be somewhat of a watch party going on at the TMC to listen to the speakers that they're going to have presenting. And there's potential for, some lunch meetup after and in-person discussion of everything that went on in the safety committee meeting. So she just really wanted me to emphasize that. If you're interested in that in-person option, as Sam said, you can reach out to Sarah or Kelly. So just some additional emphasis on that. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Raul. Oh, okay. All right.
So for the planning committee meeting, the first kickoff meeting will be, it's September 5th. And the link is, we sent out e-blast last week. Last week. And if you didn't get, you can go to the Georgia website, Georgia IT website on announcement. There's a link to sign up for this committee. And the other micro simulation subcommittee is, we have a simulation day on 25th at the Georgia TMC location. Thank you, St. Harris, for providing the venue again. And we do have a survey asking all the members to provide some ideas for our panel. We have a panel discussion on traffic simulation modeling and other career development. And that link is also on that announcement on the Georgia IT website. Go to the announcement, you will see both announcement with a link to sign up. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, Young Member Committee. So real quick, we have a social at Fetch at the Works. So that's on the August 24th. We have resume workshops coming up for Georgia Tech, Kennesaw, and UGA. And then we have a mock road safety audit coming up for young members and students only on September 27th. And then I will now pass it over. Thank y'all.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Westcott. I am the current president of the Georgia chapter of the American Planning Association, otherwise known as Georgia Planning Association. Thank you for all being here today, and especially thanks to Aaron Thorson, who is our District 3 Director, who helped put this event together, as well as Christy John, the Vice President of ITE. So thank you to them and both respective organizations. I just wanted a quick show of hands. How many people are here with ITE? All right. GPA? All right, so good show. And how many people consider themselves plan engineers? Good number. All right. So, don't need that anymore anyway. So who is Georgia Planning? Georgia Planning is across the entire state, just like ITE, but we have a little over 1,000 members currently, and about, well over 600 are in Aaron's district, so Metro Atlanta. I encourage all of you, even if you are a member of ITE, you can be also a member of Georgia Planning. You can join at either as a chapter only member, or you can join American Planning Association and become a Georgia chapter member. So I always want to have that option out there for everyone. We have many, many, many committees, and I think this will be posted later, but information is also on our website. But really kind of spanning everything. We put most of our effort, whereas ITE has lunch meetings every month, Georgia Planning really focuses on a spring conference in Metro Atlanta, either in March or April, and a fall conference, usually in September or October, in some other part of the state. And then we have a lot of other committees who actually are organizing either events or bringing programs to our spring and fall conferences. Likewise, we have a little bit different sponsorship set up. So we have annual sponsors, and then we'll have sponsors for each of our major programs in the spring and fall. But just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors. So thank you. And if you are those firms here today, thank you so much for your annual support. And also just wanted to give a quick shout out to some of our upcoming events. So one of the things that me in this role this year, I have a 2-year term, it's actually a 4-year term. You start out as president-elect or president for 2 years, and then you're past president for a year. So it's like going to college. By the end, you're ready to get out. So, but we are, what my whole intent with Georgia Planning this year and next is to really focus on things we have maybe lost along the way with COVID and everything else, and to really bring back those traditions and importance in bringing people together. And one of the things that sort of disappeared was our regular interaction with our planning schools and the students there. So for the first time in a few years, we actually are helping to co-host a Georgia Tech reception on September 6th, and everybody's invited to that. Information is on our website. We just also had a reception earlier this week at the University of Georgia, the other school, for their College of Environment and Design. So those are the 2 accredited planning schools in our state. We also have our big conference coming up in Augusta. In October, we'll have some fantastic sessions and mobile workshops. And for anyone who is interested in presenting at that, the session proposals are due tomorrow. And some other district events we have upcoming. District 1, which is in Northwest Georgia, they're going to have an event on October 30th. And actually, the National American Planning Association reached out to us to host an APA Legislative Summit here in early December. So if you have interest in any of those events, reach out to me or visit our website. And next is our sponsor.
Hey everyone, how's it going today? Nate Prathtagus, as many of you know, with More Traffic. What can I say? It's August, schools are back. We're here to help you with any data collection needs. There's quite a few other firms that are awesome to do what we do, but if we get a chance to work with you, we love that opportunity. I know we get to work with a lot of you in here, so just give us a call. You know where to find me. We're happy to help with any of your data collection efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Going to close out this. Got it. Hello, everyone. I'm Erin Thorson, the District 3 Director for the Georgia Planning Association. I also happen to chair our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. And in my day job, I work for Gresham Smith as the Planning Department Leader for our Georgia offices here. And I'm happy to present this panel today. As we all know, there are lots and lots of communities across the country and throughout the state that are working on safety action plans, on planning and demonstration projects, on implementation, and we all are well aware of the dire need to improve roadway safety in our communities. So we're really happy to bring together this panel to tell you a little bit about some of the work that's happening in and around the metro Atlanta area. I'm not going to bore you with many statistics. I know we're all more interested in hearing from the panel itself, but just as a quick overview, this program is funded through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. It sets aside or allocates $5 billion over a 5-year period. And there are primarily 2 types of grants. The naming and things have changed a little bit since the first round of applications, but they are primarily planning and demonstration grants that are intended to prepare or inform, safety action plans or help develop safety action plans. They can be supplemental studies to kind of build on work that your community has already done. And then there are implementation grants, which are implementing strategies or projects that have been identified in an action plan. And the implementation funding is a little harder to come by. There have been fewer awards of those, but as you'll see shortly, we have some good success stories right here in Georgia. So far, $1.7 billion have been awarded to communities across the United States. You can see in blue all the different jurisdictions that have been awarded funds through the program. It covers all 50 states in 1,000 different communities. And right here in Georgia, we are very fortunate to have quite a few awards that have been made to a variety of cities and counties, as well as MPOs and consolidated government agencies as well. So there's quite a few initiatives that are underway. I think most folks are in the process somewhere along the path of developing their plan and or implementing their strategies. So we're going to hear from 3 different speakers today to tell us a little bit about what they're doing in their communities. I'm going to have the speakers come up to the stage and we'll do this kind of panel style so that they can come up and present their information, and then we'll do an open Q&A at the end of the presentations. First, we're going to hear from Jerry Oberholzer, who is the Division Director of the Transportation Planning Division for Gwinnett County Department of Transportation. He oversees transportation infrastructure planning and impact assessments. And prior to this role, Jerry held a variety of planning-centric roles encompassing land use, zoning, development management across Metro Atlanta, including in Dunwoody and Forsyth County. Jerry's a Clemson grad and has a certificate in local government leadership from the University of Georgia. And outside of work, you'll find him exploring the great outdoors with his son's Boy Scout troop or traveling the country throughout the fall following the Clemson Tigers. Come on up, Jerry.
All right, thank you all very much. Okay, so Gwinnett was one of the first communities that went after Safe Streets for All back in 2022. So I'll kind of talk about what we did. We're actually about to kick off that project next week as our kickoff. We'll talk a little bit about why it's taken so long and maybe a little bit of advice for y'all moving forward. First, kind of go over some of Gwinnett's safety challenges. And I think finally, depending on where you get your sources, we're finally over 1 million residents in Gwinnett. We have a high number of motor vehicle involved fatalities. The county maintains, county plus state maintain about over 2,700 miles of roadway, and that crisscrosses all of our cities. I know there are some communities where county roads end at the city line. In Gwinnett, a lot of our major county roads go right through cities, right through city downtown. So that was very important to note as we go through this process. About a 35-minute average commute. Even though Gwinnett is becoming urban in some places, we're very much built as a suburban community and having to adapt urban living to suburban infrastructure. We have a very diverse population. I think everybody knows that. And this is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for us. There's over 140 languages that are spoken in Gwinnett. And when we look at diversity, we look at diversity from several different angles. We look at the socioeconomic diversity, making sure that we understand where are disadvantaged communities, where are communities that have transportation needs, but then also looking at geography. We know that the western end of Gwinnett, the Jimmy Carter Boulevard corridor, is vastly different than the eastern side of Gwinnett out on Harbins Road off 316, and then all the points in between. So it's very important to understand that there's not a one-size-fits-all for Gwinnett. We have to address this through engagement. The days of having your old public information open houses and see who shows up, those are over. We're going with active engagement. We're going to find community leaders. We're going to find people who understand the needs of individual communities and get that information from them. Have them be ambassadors for us, not for this type of project, but for all projects and all of their needs in between. So Aaron went over the SS4A program, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but I did want to note that there was $5 billion allocated for this program and only 1.7 has been awarded, and we're already into year 3 of it. There's a lot of money out there, and pretty much if you can sign your name on the application and fill in all the spaces correctly, there is money out there for you. So our safety action plan, we asked for $200,000 from the federal government and added $50,000 as local match for ourselves. And our plan is a county-wide plan where we're looking at the different types of roads that we have, the different types of land uses on those roads, and coming up with a guidebook of some sorts where we can then go pick a type of road. So for example, a 4-lane road with a median in a suburban commercial area would be one type of roadway in which there's several, if not dozens of those type of segments and corridors around Gwinnett. Go find ones using data that have safety issues and then apply the lessons learned through this action plan to those particular corridors. And really trying to be focused on multimodal safety. Of course, it's vehicles that, if a vehicle is pedestrian, that's a big issue. But understanding how do we make it safe for our pedestrians, our cyclists, our vehicles, our freight traffic, and as well as our transit. So Not going to spend a whole lot of time on context on a state and national level, but I did want to point out, if you notice, $200,000, $250,000 for Gwinnett's entire project is really low compared to everybody else. Well, again, we were kind of the guinea pig. We were one of the first communities to go after this grant. We didn't really know how much to go for. We had asked some consultants, some others to kind of give us some ballpark estimates. So we felt at the time $250,000 would be adequate to do this type of grant. Can we get it done with that? Yes, we can. It's going to be a little tight. We're going to pull in some of our own data sources to make it happen. But if we were going after this again, we'd probably look at going for double at least for this type of plan, especially considering Gwinnett's size. So our timeline on this project, if you look at it, that NOFO came out in May of 22, and we're just now kicking off here in August of 24, and our performance period with the federal government ends in 25 next summer. It took a long time to get this program set up on the federal level. They had to get staff for all of the programs that came out of the infrastructure law. And remember, again, those programs were the first time that the federal government has really worked closely with local governments to do these kind of grants. Generally, they would go through the state or the region and then filter down to us. And so this is the first time from Gwinnett we've really worked that closely with people from FHWA and other parts of USDOT. So it took them a long time. We didn't get that grant agreement signed with them until October of 23. So it took several months. Well, it took 6 to 8 months just from the time they awarded it to the time that they had their system set up and we could actually sign that agreement. Then the next struggle is as far as procurement comes and understanding what we can do internally with our own. How does our procurement process work internally? How does it work with federal grants? That took a long time for us to get through, but we did eventually get through it. We did select a consultant, and we're kicking that project off. Actually, next week is our kickoff, and we hope to have this plan done by March and all the ink dry by June. Again, this is a little bit more of a closer look at our specific timeline. Basically, we're going to start with, as every planning does, we're going to do some data collection, some equity analysis. Then we'll start, as we get close to the end of the year and in the beginning of next year, really get into our open houses. Now, it does say public open house, and Jerry, you just told me that public open houses aren't the way to go anymore. Yes, we still are going to have an open house, but the difference is that we are inviting key members of the community specifically to it. And asking them specifically that we want you there. We think that actually makes a difference when somebody feels personally invited to these things versus, hey, just spread the word and show up if you can make it. I want to talk about our strategic approaches on this. We are very data driven. We want to make sure, especially with a county as big as Gwinnett, we can't go out and study every single roadway in Gwinnett in the period of this grant project to figure out what's going on. And we want to be very specific with the type of data. There's all kinds of new data sources out there, as you all know. One's based on cell phone data. One's based on other types of data collected from vehicles. Understanding what data is out there and understanding what works and what makes sense is really a big thing for us. We want to make sure that when we compare the data that's out there to some of these sources to what we collect, and Gwinnett does a very robust data collection itself, that it's apples to apples, not apples to oranges. We've seen some apples to oranges in past projects, and so it makes us, I would not say leery, but we're skeptical, and I think skeptical is the right way to be, especially with all the new data sources. Be skeptical of it and ask questions and make sure that you're getting the right thing out there. As far as innovative solutions go, we want to look at all different things that we could do. What is the low-hanging fruit? What are the different types of easy solutions that can be implemented on a corridor without necessarily having to put shovel into the ground? It's very important to understand that, pedestrians are going to go where they're going to go. And, spending all the time and money and effort to put in a mid-block crossing with a hawk signal doesn't work if people are still going to cross 100 feet down the road. That may not have been the right spot due to engineering concerns and sight distances and things like that. But we have to figure out where people are going to go and try to make it safe. We don't want to encourage people to cross roads where they're not supposed to. But in some cases, we just have to figure out how do we make it safe for everybody. Partnerships, talked about how our roadways cross all the different cities in Gwinnett. We've got 15 cities, 6 CIDs, 12 neighboring jurisdictions if you count all the counties and cities that border Gwinnett. And of course, ARC is a big partner of ours. A lot of these partners already have data sources themselves, and understanding what we can share with them as much as what they can share with us, what they're working on in their projects. I know that we're helping with Dorville. Dorville is doing a very specific corridor study for Buford Highway as part of their SS4A. So understanding what others are doing is very important. So if you're in a neighboring jurisdiction in Gwinnett and you want to be more involved, let me know. We'd love to connect. And as far as broader impact, Gwinnett, we've been the leader in a lot of things in the state of Georgia, and we really want to be the leader in road safety. And that's a tall task for a county as large as ours, but this is definitely step one. So in summary, the goal here is to enhance road safety. That's the obvious goal. But we really want, again, data-driven strategies that work for us on all ends of the county that we can use moving forward. So when this project's over, we already have those data sources set up and we can pull from them whenever we need as we look at specific corridors to go after implementation money. Again, those innovative solutions. What are the new technologies? What are those low-cost enhancements? Sometimes it's as easy as just restriping roads. Our guys who do maintenance and paving are always asking me for, hey, can you find us grant money to do repaving? And I said, well, if you're willing to narrow the roadway and do some safety features with just striping, then yes, we can probably do that. So it's simple stuff like that and trying to think outside the box that not only helps with safety, but also helps other aspects of what your local governments are trying to do in their different departments in different areas. So next for us, what can you do? What can you do to help? Well, contribute your expertise. If you live in Gwinnett, who's a Gwinnetian? How many Gwinnetians we have here? Okay, good, yes. Or if you travel through Gwinnett, or you have friends or family in Gwinnett, if anything you experience in Gwinnett, it's important to tell us because I think about my own personal commute pattern. I live on northern end of Sugar Hill and I drive to Lawrenceville every day and my parents live in Snellville. So that's this north-south corridor that I experience the most. I don't drive on Jimmy Carter every day. I'm familiar with it, but the everyday experiences that others have on corridors is going to be very, very helpful to us. So don't hesitate to let me know, let somebody at Gwinnett know, just general things you experience. If you have a solution, an idea, we're open to all of it. And then advocate that to other friends and family that you have as well. And then, of course, if there's best practices, if something has worked really well in your community and you just think, hey, this is something I want to share with Gwinnett, or I've got an intersection in Gwinnett that you might try this at, again, we are very open to those type of suggestions, and it's going to take all of us really to come up with a very robust plan for SS4A. And so with that, I think I met it under the 7 minutes, and so I'll hand it off to Aaron. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Jerry. We're going to have him stay up here. A quick plug to everyone in the audience to be thinking about questions that you would like to ask of our panel. Otherwise, we'll have to go with the questions that I've written, which probably aren't going to be as good as the ones you all can think of. So next up, we're going to hear from Kristen again. Kristen, she already introduced herself, but she is the Transportation Services Unit Manager for the City of Sandy Springs and has been with the city since 2011. Her planning background lends a unique perspective to transportation systems management and operations and how to balance transportation planning and operations. She has a personal motto, which is that one should be able to walk there, bike there, drive there, or take transit safely. Kristen currently serves as the president of GPA, as we've already discussed, and for leisure, she takes note of transportation and other infrastructure while she is traveling. So she's a big nerd like a lot of the rest of us in this room. Come on up, Kristen.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Jerry. I have a favor to ask for everybody. I know we are always trying not to be distracted when we have presentations, but can everybody take out their cell phone just for a minute? And then open your camera. All right. I can't really do this one-handed with. All right. So everybody have their cell phone in their hand and their camera open. Please put it in selfie mode and take a photo of yourself. And the reason I say that, our topic today is safety. And where does safety start? It starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with all of us. I know we talk about our engineering factors and our roadway designs and our vehicles, but really it's us. It's us interacting in that environment, right? So when you think about advancing these programs in your communities at the state level, wherever you make these impacts, that's something I just want you to think about. Because that is, in my role, one of the most difficult things to communicate. All right, just a little bit about Sandy Springs. We are one of the newest cities in the state. We're actually coming up on our 20th anniversary next year. We're about 38 square miles. The population just exceeded 100,000. About 50,000 households. The median household income is about 104,000, pretty high. Also very high educational attainment here. And employment, 135,000. You know, we have the perimeter business district, which we share with Dunwoody and Brookhaven, and we also have the Roswell Road corridor. A lot of people coming here. A little less after COVID, but still quite a few people working here in Sandy Springs. From a transportation standpoint, 327 centerline miles of roadway, 73 miles of that are state routes, about 159 linear miles of sidewalk, 132 traffic signals, and we are fortunate to have 3 MARTA heavy rail stations here and then served by those buses as well. Also, I just wanted to say, I know that I get this question still. I have been at the city since 2011. But in 2019, the city did decide to bring in all the professional services in-house. So people still ask me, oh, do you work for a consultant? Well, I used to, but then I was hired by the city. So we still are using contractors for things like in my department, helping us fix our signals and maintain our signals, helping us repave our streets and restripe and signs and all that sort of stuff. But otherwise, pretty much everybody you see working at the same in Sandy Springs now are employees. All right, just in terms of the evolution, I mean, we've come a long way in 20 years. I've only been here since 2011, but from really the beginning, the city had a program called the Intersection Improvement Program. The city leaders really recognized there had been some years of disinvestment in the city and concerns and problems really weren't being addressed. And so they created a special funded program under their capital program called the Intersection Improvement Program, which we call the IIP. And just like many of you, you go through a scoring process. So you're looking at level of service and demand and crashes and cost and public interest. And that's really where the focus was. And quite frankly, the city accomplished a lot in the first 15 years. When we brought on some additional staff, I know David Lowe is here somewhere. There's David back there. He's our senior traffic engineer. And he came on and I said, well, we have this IIP. We need to keep this going. This is how we rank where we're going to go next and make these improvements in the city. And he said, well, I'd really like to look at kind of reevaluating how we do this and starting with safety as our first focus. So working with another traffic engineer at the time, they took all of the 2017 crashes in Sandy Springs, started looking at locations where there were 5 or more crashes, started to prioritize that, normalize it against volumes, and then really kind of broke out the city, both with segments and intersections, into prioritized locations. And with that said, it gave us sort of a new perspective on where should we really be focusing our attentions. And so out of that, a couple of things. One was one of the surface intersections that we could influence was Roswell Road at Abernathy. And so we undertook a study there, which resulted in some quick response projects working with our district office. Thank you, district people here, to make some of those improvements, which included actually signalizing a westbound and northbound right turn where there was a free flow right turn, but a lot of people coming down a turn lane thought they had a slip lane to get onto on Roswell Road, and they did not, and they would come to a stop. And so that was the highest crash pattern at that location. So we ended up actually signalizing that right turn. Subsequently to that, we did 2 small area safety plans. So one was in the medical district around the hospitals, and then one was in the north end. And then most recently, we're really happy to be collaborating with the Georgia DOT. We applied for a grant through ARC through the Transportation Improvement Program, call for projects to look at Roswell Road and 285, which has been a place that has experienced a high number of crashes and operational issues. And so the department has taken that project on, and we're working with them on it. Just because, we do have planners here too. Safety has to be looked at all levels. And so we adopted a updated transportation master plan in 2021, and we like to set those big visionary goals, but, promoting a safe and connected transportation system for everybody. And, in planning, you do a high level of crash analysis to try to identify trends, but also tie projects to those trends. And that was accomplished. But when it came to thinking about all of these other efforts that we did. And, I think when the Safe Streets and Roads for All program came out, we looked at our transportation master plan. We looked at our former evaluation of crashes across the city and said, did we really tick off all of the things that we need to do to be eligible for an implementation grant? And we sort of decided we did not. So with that said, we prepared a grant application. And I think the important thing to look at here is just, it does take time. Jerry also pointed this out. It is true that the USDOT and their staff were not prepared to work with all of us at the local level. So it took a little bit of time, from early 2022. We really just kicked off our plan earlier this year. But one of the things that, again, we wanted to kind of continue on, I know we have a lot of crash tools now available, and thank you, Georgia DOT, again, for helping us access that really important data. But one of the things that you really need to do is normalize that data. And so we undertook a citywide count program after we had done some initial screening where we thought we had some crash issues, and undertook over 580 counts, so that when we started to work on this program, we could normalize that. And then we hired a firm, Gresham Smith, in early part of the year to work on that. And so we commenced our plan in February, again on a very fast timeline. Takes a long time to get there, but then run. We were supposed to have a final plan in the early part of the year, and then a final submittal to FHWA by May. So with that said, Gresham Smith, every time we meet with them, they have new data to share, and it's fascinating. You think you know the trends, you think you know what's going on, but you really don't until you dig down into that. And we've been really fortunate to work very closely with our public safety as part of our safety task force, and have found that there are some differences between the state data and what our police are keeping in terms of fatal and serious injury crashes. So every single one of these fatal crashes that have occurred in the past 5 years have been vetted with our police department. And I don't know if any communities here are working closely with their police department on fatal crash investigations, but Lieutenant Sheffield oversees our traffic division here, and he does an incredible job. They turn over every stone when they do a fatal crash investigation, and they remove crashes that were maybe due to suicide, for example. They look at recalls on vehicles, whether, they essentially have a 3-ring dossier on every single fatal crash that's ever occurred in the city. And so the number that was reported was much higher, actually. It was around 50. But we walked through every single fatal crash in this time period and found out, some of these have been removed. And I think that's important to note. And I think just at the end of the day, that kind of careful evaluation, because we want to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes, but we really need to understand what the factors are that are leading to those crashes. So again, in this program, you're sort of don't look at who owns the roads. So we've started at a location where we've looked at all the crashes on 285 and 400, as well as all the surface streets. And I don't think it would be any surprise to all of you that a good number are occurring on the state routes. So 66%, 34% on just city-owned streets. But at the same time, on 285 and 400, which I keep re-emphasizing to people, it is the Sandy Springs Public Safety that are responding to those crashes, right? So some initial data that we've been looking at are our high injury network. So that's looking at both the K, which are the fatal crashes, and the A crashes, serious injury crashes, and where those are occurring. Again, on the surface streets, and these particular maps that I'm showing you right now have removed 285 and 400 from this particular data set. But all of these surface streets are places where Sandy Springs can make a difference in terms of engineering projects and other things like that. So again, on the intersections, you see a lot of clusters around major intersections. And there's some locations that kind of pop out and are a little bit of a surprise, but 2/3 of these highest injury intersections are on Roswell Road. It is also one of the most traveled roads in Sandy Springs outside the 285 and 400. Recently, we just received some of the information about the breakdowns of, where might we be able to target improvements. And so really looking at where crashes are overrepresented for certain crash types. So for our K&A crashes, interestingly enough, if you look at all crashes, and again, this is just for the surface streets, so it's State Route 9, Holcomb Bridge Road, which is 140, and then all the city-owned streets. That single vehicle crashes are resulting in serious injury or fatality at a pretty high rate compared to all crashes overall. Pedestrian crashes, again, I think that one seems to be a trend, not just in Sandy Springs, but other places as well. Aggressive driving, we'll have some concerns about that. Motorcycles, another vehicle, vulnerable road user, and then speeding. We hear a lot about speeding here. And then I think just in terms of conditions, this is pretty interesting, I think. Dark, not lighted, Sundays. Pause on that for a minute. Is it the Sunday drivers or is it the late night Saturday drivers? We were just talking about that. I think it's not a surprise that a lot of those crashes are occurring on our major collector streets. Dark lighted, so there's two different conditions there, and then on state routes. So just a little glimpse of where we're at right now. We have some ways to go. We'll be completing our additional analyses and looking at risk factors and documentation. Most importantly, we're going to look for strategies, policies, programs, and projects to move forward into implementation. Working with our decision makers. This is going to be a new thing for us in Sandy Springs, and maybe some of you have already had these conversations in your communities or with your boards, but how do you set those targets for getting to zero fatalities, to getting to zero serious injuries? It's not an easy conversation to have. I would say there is a prevalence in this world because all of us think it's not controllable, that it's just going to happen regardless. But we have to be in a position to tell everybody that, no, we actually can make a measurable difference in this if we focus on the right things. But again, going back to, it's all of us. So we'll do what we can, but we can get there. We had a safety task force meeting today with a lot of new data, and that was fascinating. And I invite all of you, if you live or work in Sandy Springs, we are going to have some 2 sets of meetings coming up on August 29th. So with that, on to Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. You want to just Kristen, you want to stay up here for questions? All right, so from planning and data analysis to some implementation discussion, we're going to have Andrew Lewis from the City of Atlanta come up. He is a project manager in the Office of Capital Delivery at ATL DOT. He has a background in traffic engineering and transportation planning. He manages a range of multimodal projects, including sidewalk installation, safe streets projects, and federally funded scoping studies for complete streets, as well as the Pryor Street and Central Ave SS4A project. Previously, Andrew worked as a consultant, leveraging traffic modeling and other data-driven tools to help public agencies and their stakeholders make decisions on how to plan for a better future. He has a bachelor's in civil engineering from Georgia Tech and is a registered EIT, currently studying for his PE. Wish him all success. Come on up, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, everybody. Let me see if I can make this work for me. Perfect. Excellent. So like she said, I'm with the City of Atlanta Department of Transportation. I've actually transitioned over to our Office of Capital Delivery, which is new for me. I'm more like all of you guys, but it's a good learning experience. And we have a lot to deliver at the City of Atlanta, which I'm excited to tell you guys all about today. What I'm going to be talking to you guys through is a little bit of how our program of projects works and exists at the City of Atlanta today, including the funding for that, which ties into how we're using the Safe Streets for All federal grant. And then I'm actually going to talk about 2 projects. So the first is our Central and Pryor Safe Streets for All project, which is, I guess, the one implementation grant that we have right now in Georgia, which is a very exciting project. And then actually, I want to share a little bit about what we have applied in this year's implementation cycle. So we haven't heard back yet. Fingers crossed, everybody. So we don't know yet if we'll win that grant, but I thought you guys would be interested to see how we're hoping to use the SS4A program even further in the future. So to start out, this is our Moving Atlanta Forward T-SPLOST and Bond program. I hope you guys are all familiar with it, but if not, just an overview. In 2022, Atlanta voters passed a 0.4 of a penny sales tax for transportation projects. And then we separately have a $400 million infrastructure bond with, you can see, 1/4 of that going to transportation projects. So between these two programs, this is our Moving Atlanta Forward program, we have $450 million for transportation improvements over the next 5 years. So when I'm talking about the safety projects that we're doing, our Vision Zero program, our Safe Streets program, this is born out of our Moving Atlanta Forward program of what we're trying to deliver over the next 5 years. There are, I want to say, $90 million worth of that program is what we have identified as Safe Streets projects. That's what the Prior Street and Central Avenue Safe Streets project is included under. But really, all of this program at its heart is safety. Even outside of our Safe Streets category, we have new sidewalk installation for roads where we don't currently have sidewalks. We have resurfacing. We have new complete street infrastructure, bike lanes. All of these things that we know improve safety, especially for our vulnerable roadway users. So how have we added in the SS4A program to that? So both of these projects basically have their foundation in our Moving Atlanta Forward program. So what we had in that T-SPLOST, which, you know, the voters didn't just approve the amount of money. That was a whole project list that was included in that referendum. If you're a City of Atlanta resident, or you were in 2022, I hope you were aware of that and voted for it. But Atlanta voters approved a specific project list. And so on that list was our Prior Street and Central Avenue Safe Streets project, which we had allocated $10 million of that T-SPLOST money for. So we basically had a $10 million project, and we at the City of Atlanta are very bold, and we said, we want to go after an implementation grant. We want to ask for $30 million and turn this into a $40 million project. And thankfully, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but in our 2018 Comprehensive Transportation Plan, where we put safety as the forefront of the issues that we wanted to solve for the Atlanta transportation system, we felt that we checked all the boxes of having a safety action plan from our Comprehensive Transportation Plan. And so that allowed us to go and pitch this project. We had it in our project list. We had it already funded. It was, we had the details. We said, we're going to call this shovel ready, and we're going to say that we're ready to go and deliver this. And so we were awarded that $30 million. I have here 2023 because what they're saying on the cycles, I mean, that's when it really was awarded. But from the stats earlier, that was the 2022 implementation cycle. I was actually kind of encouraged hearing you guys talk. Atlanta is not alone in the slow moving process, and you'll see that on the timeline here, especially for an implementation project like this one. It's slow going. And then I'll touch on afterwards. We actually decided with this year's implementation cycle, rather than going after a particular project location, we wanted to try to fund just citywide implementation of action items that came out of our Vision Zero action plan that we completed last year. And so that's more of sort of quick fix, quick build items addressing safety throughout the entire city. And so that's a $12 million ask that we put in, like I said, TBD. Did I double jump? No. Okay. So to dive into what our Prior Street and Central Avenue Safe Streets project is, here's a little bit of information. Prior Street and Central Avenue are one-way piers north-south in downtown Atlanta. These go, you can see this project from Edgewood Avenue all the way down to the Atlanta South Side Beltline Trail, and tying in right where our planned Summerhill BRT end-of-line station is going to be. And the limits here were we were able to extend those limits and bring this further up into downtown by, essentially quadrupling our project budget. Why we picked these roads in particular and why they have such a great need. Both of these streets are on our high injury network, which was identified in our transportation plan. And then we have, I want to say, about a dozen intersections throughout this project with other roads on our high injury network. So great safety need here, history of bicycle and pedestrian crashes. and we had the space, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes, a lot of room to work with just more lanes than we need, just an overbuilt road with a lot of vehicle dedicated lanes. This is also a really important connection in this area, both going under I-20 and connecting between the South Side neighborhood and downtown Atlanta, and then actually crossing over 75-85 and providing that east-west connectivity. And what we're hoping to do with this is amplify this, not just to be a safe connection, but to be a safe connection for all users. And then that equity component was very important for us as well. That South Side neighborhood, that's really what's kind of south of 20 and west of 75-85, is a historically disadvantaged community, one that not just has failed to benefit from our transportation system in the past, but has actually been harmed by it with the interstate system that came through in that community. So this was an opportunity for us to really direct a lot of our dollars and federal dollars into a really deserving community. So here's some pictures of what the existing conditions are. This is where Pryor and Central come together and become two-way at Pryor Road, or split up depending on which direction you're going. And so you can see here with our 3 lanes in each direction at this point. Here it is at I-20, and we've also got on-ramps, off-ramps going to 75-85. You have a lot of issues of people trying to make these turns from multiple lanes over, where we see of people merging in from the interstate and trying to immediately take a left and move over several lanes. And then especially at these interchanges, we just kind of drop all pretense of attempting to have any type of multimodal infrastructure, no sidewalks under these bridges, no crossings, crosswalks, etc. You can see what this looks like in the downtown portion. This is, we've got state capitol, city hall, Fulton County government, all of those things here. And so I said kind of 3 to 4 vehicle dedicated lanes. That varies whether that's travel lanes or parking lanes. So you can see an example here where that's kind of 2 through lanes and then 2 lanes allocated for parking in each direction. So this is Central and Pryor right there. So what do we want to do with it? First and foremost, we need to resurface, especially that area south of Memorial, south of I-20. The pavement condition is in terrible shape, makes it very, very unsafe if you were to attempt to bike on it, or just for our drivers, right? So we need to resurface that road. What that resurfacing is going to help us do is when we come back and restripe our lanes to kind of right size the lanes that we have, make sure that they're all safe widths. We have some that are too wide. We have some that are actually too narrow and need to be widened. But also to reallocate, again, those vehicle dedicated lanes and allow us to install some form of safe, protected, dedicated bicycle infrastructure. So we're still going back and forth on, whether that's one protected bike lane in each direction on the northbound and the southbound, or whether that's a cycle track, but some form of separated, dedicated bicycle facility. And then throughout the project, this really for us, this is our gold standard when it comes to Vision Zero, or we want it to be, right? And so at every single one of these intersections throughout the project, we want to be applying these countermeasures that we've identified. So whether that's actually having protected bike intersections, where we have intersections with cross streets that also have protected bike lanes, putting in mid-block crossings, RFBs, PHBs where appropriate, daylighting in intersections where we have the parking. It's kind of the full gambit of safety improvements. Here are some sample cross sections of what this can look like when we're done with it. And where we are. So I don't have the very detailed timeline that Jerry shared on his project, just because, like you said, things are kind of slow moving. But you can see here, we also not too long ago were able to execute our grant agreement and get started. We're in the procurement process right now for our design consultant firm. But we will have design complete 2026, and then we're bound right now on a 5-year time frame from when our grant agreement was executed earlier this spring to have construction complete in 2029. And that feels a long way away for some of us, but on this type of project and using federal funds and going through the federal process, especially with procurement, that's something that we're kind of going through the learning curve, I guess, at the City of Atlanta on delivering a project in that time scale and having to be very quick with it. And so I'll jump here now and change gears to talk about what we applied for this year, which I'm very excited about, which was system-wide implementation of our Vision Zero action plan. And I had a lot of slides here, but I will just encourage you, go and check out our Vision Zero action plan. This was just completed in November of 2023. This was funded with, I want to say, a grant from FTA to allow us to go and create this action plan. But it's kind of the foundation of our Vision Zero implementation that we're trying to do throughout the city, and it's available on our website. But what we included out of that was a long list of implementation activities. And a lot of that obviously is complementary with that Moving Atlanta Forward program that we're working on, where we already have capital projects planned for locations that had been prioritized based on safety, based on traffic needs, based on equity needs. So we have capital projects planned to address a lot of our safety needs in the city. But this will help direct kind of what those projects look like, make sure that their designs include elements that we have included in our action plan as what we want to see for safety in the city. And then we also, outside of those capital projects, we have a lot of segments, even just on our high injury network. And then we also have a systemic risk network where we don't have a capital project that's in that Moving Atlanta Forward T-SPLOST and bond program. And so it's how are we going to address safety, even if it's just through some, quick build projects or just some striping, or, we talk about tactical urbanism at the city of Atlanta, where if we can go out and do something with cones or with temporary materials and it'll make it safer, then we'll go out and do something like that. So what we included in our proposal for this year's SS4A implementation grant would, number one, fund quick build projects on high injury network and systemic risk network streets where we don't have a capital project. And that'll be things like daylighting at intersections or putting in new mid-block crossings, or maybe just going out and putting in leading pedestrian intervals at signals throughout that area. So those kind of quick fix projects where we already have a buffered bike lane, going in and putting bollards, that type of thing. The second thing included in this proposal is actually to fund our Fatal Crash Review Commission. So that's very similar to what Kristen was just talking about. We have actually established, we put in legislation earlier this year that created the Fatal Crash Review Commission for the city of Atlanta. But what this grant would do is provide funding to actually go out and do studies, do analysis, be responsive. Wherever we have a fatal crash moving forward, we can go out, we can understand issues, and have a source of funding to go out and do some quick build projects, so that we can at least say we've done something, right, and show an improvement in that next year, rather than trying to program a project 5-10 years out. And then finally, if you go and look at that action plan, it has a list of action items, some of which have to do with kind of our departmental organization and us kind of budgeting things as a city, and then other types of projects and systemic improvements throughout the city. So there's about, I think, 100 action items. So this would provide dedicated funding for about a quarter of these action items. And that, again, that's things like going out and putting leading pedestrian intervals wherever possible. We talked about establishing a striping squad, if you're familiar with the pothole posse that we have at the city. Very similar. Anywhere we've got faded, illegible markings, just go out, put some new paint down, thermoplastic, to just go and refresh that sort of thing. It includes funding to allow us, where we know, hey, a quick fix project isn't going to solve a problem. We need a capital project somewhere in the future that we don't have funding for now. We can at least go and do the engineering and the planning work to put together a concept, to do some planning, to do some data analysis, to help us have kind of a shovel-ready project, to help us go and get that funding in the future, to go out and build future safety projects. So that's all that I have as far as my presentation. I want to plug a couple of folks here. My contact info is here, and then our Vision Zero manager, Cole Smith, wasn't able to be here today, but he's the manager of our Vision Zero program and kind of the head of everything that we're doing from a safety element at the city of Atlanta. And then also, I have actually transitioned off as we've been reorganizing. So I've taken on new projects, and we actually have a new project manager for the Prior Street and Central Avenue SS4A project. So if you want to get in contact with him, the new project manager, his contact info is on the screen as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. Awesome. Okay, who has burning questions for our panel? We have about 10 minutes left. I see a hand. Yes, please.
So this is probably most relevant to Atlanta, where it's going to be the majority, I suppose. But um, are have y'all considered? Well, there's a lot of micromobility, the scooters and the electric bikes and things like that. Things that are not quite, they're motorized, but they're not quite vehicles. They don't quite fit in a bike lane. Are y'all looking into things like dedicated lanes for those types of vehicles, or, parking areas, at least for the scooters, things like that, as part of your plan?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. And the city of Atlanta, actually, despite its size, I think was one of the top 10 cities in the country on micromobility usage. So we have a ton of it in the city, and we're definitely planning for it. I'll say definitely right now in terms of laneage, we do expect those users to be in our bicycle lanes and want to provide those connected bike lanes to allow users to be there, because they don't really feel comfortable on the roads, and the people on the sidewalks don't really feel comfortable with them on the sidewalks. So that is definitely another reason why we want to have our bike infrastructure network. I'll say on the parking though, one thing this is included in kind of our quick build projects that we're doing already right now, and then would be funding additional with the grant if we get it, is actually micromobility corrals that would dual purpose as daylighting at intersections. So where you take away just that little bit of space, maybe 20 feet, and stripe it off right there in front of a crosswalk. But then actually what we have is dedicated bike racks right there that people can just use as bike racks, but it's also a dedicated drop-off spot for micromobility devices. So it keeps that clutter off of the sidewalk, provides kind of a comfortable place for people to drop them, while also doing that purpose of accomplishing that safety benefit for pedestrians using the area.
Other questions? Yes, I see one back here.
So this is for Kristen and Andrew, I think. Kristen, I think you said for Sandy Springs, your existing transportation plan didn't meet the requirements that you needed to go after implementation grant, so you had to do a safety action plan. And Andrew, I think you said you thought yours did, so you were able to go right to the implementation. So for both of you, do you have like lessons learned or advice for communities that are developing an overall transportation plan so they can meet those requirements for the safety action plan? Thanks.
Jog back and forth. Get my steps. Thanks for that question. Is everybody familiar with a NOFO? Notice of funding opportunity? Yeah. So really, we went back and forth on whether or not we met the criteria, but it was really driven by reading the notice of funding opportunity about what elements your plan had to create. And the SS4A program came out after we had done our transportation master plan. And we started to look, even though we had done that evaluation of crashes, we hadn't set metrics for, reducing serious injury or fatal crashes. So we hadn't had that conversation. We didn't have a program in place to regularly tell the public and the policymakers where we are. Every year the council has a retreat in Sandy Springs, and they are told, this is how many fatal crashes we had this year. The police actually set really the targets for those metrics, but we just really felt like we don't quite hit all of these points, and we thought it was a really good opportunity to be more comprehensive. When we had done our safety evaluation in 2017, with the 2017 data, it was just 1 year of data points, and to really look more broadly with the 5 years of data, and really be more comprehensive about it, so that we could be able to talk through that. With that said, all of us working right now in this period, all are having to contend with the complications of 2020. And it is a conversation that everyone has to have in their communities with their policymakers, because all of us know that travel patterns changed, our behaviors changed, how we operate our vehicles changed. And I guess we end up with a lot of questions from our policymakers. It's a little off topic, but you're looking backwards and not forward. And so that systemic risk analysis was also not included in any of our plans, right? So to try to look at that data to be more predictive, to make sure that we're looking at the factors that are leading to these serious injury and fatal crashes and crashes overall. I mean, I think we sometimes overly dismiss property damage only crashes, but the cost of that for individuals, especially in the target groups of people who are historically disadvantaged or don't have the resources, can be devastating, right? So crashes, all crashes are terrible. And I can't imagine that anyone in this room hasn't had one. If there is, you are a unicorn, right? Everyone has been in a crash. And whether or not it's changed your life is different. But, you know, I can't imagine there's not somebody in this room who hasn't had a family or friend member, you know, somebody whose lives have been completely turned upside down by a crash. So it's easy to get lost in those numbers. And I think we need to make sure we look at the people. So the plans are so important for making sure that we're not only just looking at the numbers, but that we're actually making a positive impact for people.
Thank you. And I'll just add to that. I think what really helped us at the City of Atlanta in the work that we had done in our comprehensive transportation plan, I guess us being able to hold that up and say that we have a safety action plan are, number one, actually in 2020, the City of Atlanta adopted, an ordinance basically, how do they put it? Essentially adopting the Vision Zero program and being a Vision Zero city. And so that was around the same time that we created our Department of Transportation, and we could say that goal of eliminating fatal and serious injury crashes was fundamental with what our goals were as a department and of our capital delivery program. And then also in our comprehensive transportation plan, what we did include is I do believe that did include the analysis and the development of our high injury network, and so we did have that evaluation included there. I think those are the two critical pieces that set us up for success. Thanks, Jack.
I saw one other hand over here, and then we'll do Sam, and I think that'll probably be it because that'll take us to the end of our time.
Thanks. I have a question actually for Jerry. As you described, the county as more suburban, transitioning to urban. How do you balance the what I would presume would probably be more vehicle-related improvements, and also, like versus like bike and ped related improvements, and then how do you manage the expectations of the public, for example, of the imbalance?
Well, 2 points on that. Excuse me. First off is that every project that Gwinnett does now has multimodal focus. So if we have a project to improve roadway for capacity or turn lanes or something like that, then we're also adding in sidewalks and other facilities. If it's part of our Trails Master Plan, we're building those as well. So all that kind of goes into it. But there's two things really, and I've been preaching this, which is there is, the safety, the measurable safety of walking or biking alongside a road. There's also the perception of safety. And if you build a trail or a sidewalk on the side of a busy highway, and even though it has a very, very low risk of anything happening, if people don't feel comfortable walking next to cars going 45 miles an hour, then that's what we need to address. And so preaching that to the public, I think they agree with that, because you can hear, when we do projects, sometimes they're like, well, I don't know why you put a sidewalk there. Who's going to walk on that? So understanding about the perception of safety and how we can, alleviate those fears is a very important part of it. So it really just comes down to public engagement. It comes down to understanding what the community wants out of a project. We're going to fix this road, but we know that some people walk on it. Do you know people who walk on it? Do you know what their concerns are? When we can address it at a granular level like that, then I think we can get some outcomes that all roadway users are happy with.
Okay, Sam, we're going to give the last question to you.
Surprise, it's not a question. I just wanted to just quickly chime in, especially on one of the other questions that was said, hey, what did we learn? What were some things that we could do better, or where can we get help? So from the Georgia Department of Transportation's perspective, obviously we want to do everything we can to support communities and agencies that are going after this money, because if it is not evidently clear in the presentation, the money does not come to GDOT at all. This is the first time it's going to local agencies to be able to do these safety improvements, which is really big for us in general. But we as a DOT, we have resources for anybody and everybody that's doing this type of analysis. And we also have worked with FHWA and built a template for a local road safety plan that could be used to be able to turn in for implementation projects. That's actually built into our new metric tool that houses our crash data, and you can do your analytics on it. So I just wanted to make sure that was known for everybody, that we actually have that resource. And if there's anything else that the DOT can step in and help with, we're obviously there to be able to do that as well. So.
Let's give our panel a big round of applause again, please. And thank you to everyone here who came out. Hopefully this was informative and also provided some, good networking opportunities. This event has been historically kind of an annual event, although since 2020 it's kind of, come in and out a little bit. But we really enjoy the collaboration between GPA and ITE, and we'd love to do this again in the future. So if y'all have ideas and suggestions for next year's joint meeting, reach out to Christy or I, and we'll gladly take suggestions. And we appreciate you all coming out today. Thank you.